Welcome to another episode of the Pro Physique Code. I have two very special guests with me today. I am your host, Coach Rachel, and I'm joined by Paul Revelia, our head coach at Pro Physique, and Doug Miller of Core Nutritionals. How you guys doing?
Amazing.
Good. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you guys on. Any updates from the week, like how you guys are doing? What's new today?
Yeah, what's
My
new with you,
week is
Doug?
always crazy. I never know what I'm getting into when I come to work on Monday morning. So every week there's something great and something disastrous. So it's
Well, you've got the full gym now, right? So that's the new. You're still
I had them. The leg room is right here, so I had them turn down the music because it's like our wall is not completely soundproof. So if you hear some loud grunting or screaming, that's probably the leg room.
Yeah, it looks pretty cool. I'm really excited to see it. It's like an entire room for all of your leg stuff. You call it the pit, right?
Yep. When you walk into it, it looks like you're standing in the middle of like the Coliseum. So there's like gladiators fighting lions, and it's pretty cool.
The Crush It Coliseum. You just ran with that theme, huh?
Yeah, it's been pretty awesome. I didn't mean to get into the gym business, but it's been pretty great.
Do you ever just mid-workout scream, "Are you not entertained?"
We should definitely do like a reel about that or something funny for the.
I think you guys need costumes too, like gladiator costumes that you all wear for a reel. I think that's up your alley.
It sounds like a Patrick and Doug thing.
Definitely.
Yeah, it definitely does.
I'm sure Carl would be interested as well. He's always good for a costume.
But he's in Virginia, right? He's not there very often, is he?
Yeah, but he'll be here like twice a month usually.
Okay. That's enough. That's all you need.
That's enough of Carl.
Yeah, just in bits and pieces.
Yeah. So I'm excited about our subjects today. We're going to talk kind of about the partnership that you guys have built over the years. For those of you listening who don't know, Core Nutritionals is one of our sponsors for the podcast. Thank you, Core and Doug. And Paul and you, Doug, you guys have been partnered for a while for various ventures. We have the PR series, Paul Revelia series, as a specific few products from Core Nutritionals like Poise and Burn and Vegan, I think. Those are the three. And then you guys have known each other for a while just through bodybuilding. So why don't you talk about that? Like, how'd you guys meet? How'd you start kind of working together and how you do? Go from there.
We officially met at a bodybuilding show in Plattsburgh because of Ron Parmeter. But I, of course, knew who Doug was as a competitive natural bodybuilder. He was winning all the shows when I just got into the sport. So I knew who he was, and I knew he had his own line of products. I was involved with another company and Mark Lobliner at that time. And Mark and Doug were friends. So it was like this really cool weekend in Plattsburgh, New York. I mean, it was probably a 40-person bodybuilding show, right, Doug? I mean, it was a very small show.
It was the Uprising, right? Wasn't that the name of the show?
But it turned into
we recorded the Harlem Shake. Remember when that
That's
was
what I was going to say. It turned into like a social media weekend because of I mean, at the time I was just starting to do YouTube stuff and Mark was there, and I mean, we just had a lot of fun. There was a bunch of well-known natural bodybuilders there. There was probably more judges than there were competitors.
It's true. It was like Alberto. It was you, Ron, Mark Lobliner,
Chad,
Matt
the guy
Miller.
that ran the OCB. Another one of the OCB members was there. I don't remember all their names, but it was like Matt Liller was there. It was a star-studded lineup. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a blast. I don't know how long after that you came on board. A lot of the Civation guys started coming on board as core reps.
Yeah, so initially when I was working with Civation, they were big proponents of natural bodybuilding, and I was going to the natural bodybuilding shows, either setting up demos or just talking about the products that I use, especially on the message boards back then. And then I started to get the feeling like they stopped sending me product. I had to really start to like prod them for things. And then they just announced that they were no longer going to be sponsoring natural bodybuilding shows. They were shifting the brand. I forget what it was, but it was something about more retail and less bodybuilding specific. And so I was kind of like, well, that's really the only reason I liked Civation at the time. I liked their products. But when that happened, I immediately thought of Doug, because at the time Doug was sponsoring all the natural bodybuilding shows. He was doing demos there. And the more you get to know about Doug, which we can talk a little bit about here, is just his morals and his ethics and his drive when it comes to creating supplementation. The supplementation market is just full of charlatans, and so it was a no-brainer for me. And I think when I came on with Doug, I was literally just doing demos, and I was usually asking him for money to sponsor this show and that show so I could get in good with promoters and, just build the brand. I did promos in the gym with him, with Core. I tried to get his product into gyms, so it was very like grassroots.
But when did you leave your corporate job? What year was that?
It was 8 years ago because my son was born. So
exactly. So it was right around the same time. So I know in 2013 we met at the Uprising. My wife told me she was pregnant with our first son, like shortly thereafter, and that's when I told her I was quitting my really good job.
How long had Core been a thing at that point?
So Core was founded in 2005.
That's
honestly.
Right. Yeah.
Our first product, it was founded in 2004, first product out in 2005.
MRP.
And really for about 7 or 8 years, I didn't take a penny. I had another good corporate job doing litigation consulting. And I just was building the brand on the side. It was a side hobby, right? Like I loved it. I spent a ton of time on it. At that point in time, we had a ton of products. I was just putting every penny back into the brand. But I remember it, and I think Paul and I were kind of on the same path because we had great corporate jobs, and we kind of took that leap of faith to kind of go all in on our true passions, which was coaching and the supplement side.
Yeah, you were even doing coaching back then. Team Miller was,
you
had some really good competitors.
Yeah, so 2014, after my last year competing, I was swamped with clients. Like it was just absolutely nuts. And that was a great business in and of itself. But, I stopped taking clients on probably in 2017 just because I couldn't do everything, right? Like you can't be great at everything, and my passion really was the brands that we were building, and then we have the retail arm, and there was multiple brands coming underneath the umbrella, so like it was just too much. And coaching was great. I enjoyed working with the people. It was good money, but like it wasn't where I needed to spend my time, especially now starting a family and having 2 kids. It's just like something had to give. So good thing Paul was doing coaching, because then I could just send people a call.
Yeah, the talks that Doug and I had, and our businesses have kind of paralleled each other. That's the kind of, every time we get together, we kind of go through this thing of like, we're dealing with different, solving different problems that come up as your business grows. I think we're at 30 employees now, if you count, all of our coaches. And so that comes with
28 coaches total, I think.
Well, then we're probably at 35 employees. Yeah, because now we brought on Nikki full-time as our admin. We've got full-time, web developer, nerd guru, Marissa. So and we've got actually directors of coaching, and we need another director. So there's these established things that are happening to the business that, it's like, and I'm sure Doug can, comment on this, but your business gets to a point, and it's almost like getting more business means you make less money. So you've got to figure out how to allow the business to grow and be more profitable or remain profitable, because there are these breaking points where you're working really hard, but you're not getting ahead anymore. And so we've had to streamline some processes. For us, it was like the customized payment platform, the coaches update platform. And I'm sure for Doug, it was, like they just moved to a new facility. So I'm sure,
Yeah, it's a constant, it's kind of a roller coaster, right? Because you get to a point where you get overwhelmed, and if you don't reinvest back into the company, then you'll never grow further. So you have to go up and then you reinvest, right? So you might have a dip for a little bit because your costs and everything else, your overhead, all those other admin people that you're adding to your team, there might be some years where things are, it might look a little like you went backwards or something, but you've invested so much back into the brand for future growth. And every time we do that, we make a big investment. We've been lucky enough that it's really paid off. So like, if you're not willing to invest back into the company and you're an entrepreneur and you just are not willing to, you just want the cash now, like you're never going to be long-term successful.
No, that's when Doug said that they didn't take any money out of the business, I kept my job for as long as I could. I literally got like forced out because I was making more money coaching and my time was starting to get monopolized. But before that, I loved my job. I enjoyed going to work. So I did the same thing. I did not spend a single penny that I made from my side hustle. It just went into the bank. And so that's always allowed me, I think, to, make the right decisions. Not, I see some people start coaching and they get desperate and they start doing questionable practices and they start, DM spamming people or whatever, and I've been fortunate. I've never had to do any of those things. But I think that's also what helps, Core, Pro Physique, our brands are, they're well known. And I always say, like, I'm not trying to be an overnight success. I'd rather just be a long-term success. And that's when people ask about Core, they're like, yeah, they just been consistent. Like, Doug doesn't need to do this crazy marketing and all these schemes. He's got a built-in customer base because he makes great products. So yeah,
I mean, there's other brands out there have gone to the moon in like 2 years, right? Like there's some crazy, like they might have the hot influencer of the day or, that we haven't done that. Like we just did a podcast, our boss status podcast we filmed last week, which will be coming out in a week or so, where we talk about our origin story. And we actually did it to memorialize our stories. So it was Carl, Patrick, and David Dodrell of Arms Race, and we kind of memorialized literally from day one what started Core, how did the stores start to grow, how did Merica Labz, Merica Energy, Arms Race come into play, and really it was to memorialize it for us. We talked about all the different warehouse changes and the craziness of us moving and finding the spaces and all that other stuff, but really it's also for our staff because there's a lot of people that work for me now. Well, one, that some of them I haven't even met, and some of them don't really even know anything about me per se or the brand's origin. And so having the keeper of the story is for us very important for our culture and, our core values. And, it's the same from you. Like, nowadays you can go to a mastermind class to learn how to be like this online coach guru. And I'm sure you have thoughts about that stuff. But I know for me personally, that makes me cringe, but not hating on it. Just for me, that's not something I would do. And you can become very successful doing it. But I know you, Paul, like you probably messed up and had to learn the hard way. I know you worked with Lane there for a while, but like your stuff was kind of grassroots, just like, I grew Core.
Yeah, I think my early efforts were to better myself, and that had a natural kind of correlation to growing the business the right way. And I'm not so opposed to people taking a class or wanting to learn how to be a better business owner.
Absolutely.
The problem I have is I'll help you be a figure coach in the first year.
That's the cringe.
Yeah, they're not the sustainable. It's not the sustainability of that approach.
It's all about money for those people.
Yeah, and I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with money. Listen, we all make money. We all work hard for money. But when your focus is money and not on your craft or being the best in your industry, I think there are some shortcuts taken, and that's I've been very blessed. The first employee I brought on has also been, without a doubt, the most morally, ethically upholding person in our company, and that's Steven. And he is, who's to say if I brought on the wrong first employee, things could have gone a different way. But Steven has been, to this day, not only is a great coach and is a supporter of Pro Physique, and now he's one of our directors of coaching, but he'll even keep me in my place every now and then. He'll tell me like, hey man, like we don't need to be going in that direction. So he's, that's what's allowed us to grow. And honestly, sometimes, and maybe Doug can mirror this, but like sometimes getting the hell out of the way. The thing that really allowed us to grow a couple of years ago was when I said, okay, I'm done running the business. I'm done. I want to coach. I'm going to go back to coaching. You guys figure out the business, and just got out of the way. And then lo and behold, listen, I have my inputs. The transformation challenge was my idea. I have some very specific thoughts on consumer behaviors and things I see in the industry, but how they handle the billing, how they manage the coaches, how all those things, like I if I start to get involved in that, it prevents us from growing.
And I think you became a even better coach, Paul, than you were before. Like you were already one of the best coaches in the industry, and then when you did that, somehow you got even better.
Oh no, you're being nice, Rachel, but there was a period of time there where I probably became a worse coach. because,
Sure.
coaching is a path to a business. And at a certain point, you become more focused on the business than the coaching. So, and, one of my closest friends is Lane Norton, and he was a coach who became a business. And there was a rough transition there for Lane where he went from coaching to business ownership. And when I saw him going through that, I thought, okay, I love coaching. I'm going to stay a coach. If that meant I just remained a small one-person business, great. But we found a way to scale it. We found a way to take the brand and the brand that I had built, and now placed it on the shoulders of you guys. And Rachel, now you're doing great things as a coach, and that's what gets me excited now, is seeing what everyone's doing. But yeah, you can't take a class on what we're doing. Me, Doug, listen, I have a master's degree in business. It didn't teach me, I obviously benefited from it, but no one can explain to you what it's like to work 18 hours a day and go to bed and feel like you didn't get everything done. And that's been years, and I still go through that even to this day,
Yeah. The to-do list is never ending, right? But you have to learn that that's just part of it. That's just part of the gig of owning a business. And so, my brain doesn't shut off. That's my problem. But it's also a good thing because my brain doesn't shut off. So I'm constantly, walking in the office and kicking things over by some of the ideas I have. And part of that was, I did everything for our business for a long time. Shoot, if I told you I still ran the books for the brands up until about 8 months ago, you guys would think I'm crazy. The amount of, they were pretty large brands, and I was literally reviewing credit card statements. Just because that's just the way I am. I'm devil's in the detail, and you have to understand the basics and the of a small business to make sure that it's successful and profitable. But as soon as I brought on somebody to take all that over, man, holy crap, my life was changed. That's for sure. And I think it's only helped speed up the growth of the brands as well.
Yeah, I've been pretty lucky. Misty took over all, because I used to literally have Excel spreadsheets of all the coaches and all the, when we first, and I could only manage 4 or 5 coaches because the amount of data was overwhelming. And that was one of the things when Misty came in to take over. It's fortunate that my wife, for those that don't know, she's the boss of Pro Physique on the back end. She does, make sure everything's going the way it should be. And she had a background in banking, so that really helped her because she's used to managing people. She's used to managing, finances. But yeah, letting that go, it's hard because you have to trust somebody with your life's work. Every little thing is like that for us as business owners. And so that's why it's been fun to be involved with Core all these years, because, Doug's also never said to me, you need to post more, you need to tag this product. He's allowed me to do things very organically, and probably annoyingly so at times. But I think it's also allowed for people that, follow Core and follow all the athletes with Core. We don't shove supplements down people's throats. I talk about them when they make sense for me. And that's, I think, why I get respect from my YouTube subscribers, from my Instagram followers, from my clients. And it hasn't slowed down Core's growth at all. So it's been fun. And now having some input with the PR series, that's been really fun, because I think as a coach, you've got your kind of finger on the pulse of what's going on in the fitness world a little bit more. Clients are asking me about this product, that product. So I'll let Doug know, hey, this is what's going on with this research. So we've been able to come up
we're
with
working on a thyroid/adrenal product.
Yeah.
Just,
Well, and that's the Poise product that we came out with. That was purely based on me going, okay, I tend to work with a lot of females. I tend to know that a lot of them are having, the longer prep goes, more symptoms of, issues with their cycle. And so we came up with a supplement, Doug's the brains behind that. He's got this formulators, but the feedback on Poise has been remarkable.
Huge.
Remarkable. In fact, I've had girls tell me they stopped taking it and then they forgot that they stopped taking it, and then their cycle came and it was so painful, and they're like, I didn't realize, because I had not even noticed the symptoms for a couple months. So yeah, I've had great feedback, and that's how all the products are. That's how Core Heart is. That's all the products that my clients have been using, I get the same feedback from. So it's when someone's like, oh, well, I'm going to just get ashwagandha from, the local supplement shop. And I go, no. Like, you don't know what's in that bottle. Let's go get Core Hard. I know Doug is literally across the street from his manufacturer. He's making sure everything's dosed properly because, that's really where, just putting a word on a bottle doesn't make it work. It's actually putting what's on the bottle in the product.
Yeah, I mean, it really is kind of scary manufacturing just in general in this industry. Like, yes, the FDA looks over things, but like any Joe can open up a manufacturing facility and start making things, right? Like, it's kind of crazy the barriers to entry into doing that. Now, to doing it correctly and properly and with the right certs and the right testing is a whole other level. But to just manufacture and throw things in a cap or in a powder, like, it's pretty easy to do. It's also pretty easy to do it very poorly, but it's a lot harder to do it well. And that was one of the main reasons Core was started in the beginning, is because back in 2005, like, I wasn't happy with the options at the time. So I thought, well, hey, maybe I can do it better myself. And to this day, that's kind of why, like, I do really make products around a selfish, perspective. But vegan's a perfect example that as the brand has grown, I mean, Paul literally harped on me for, I don't know how many years before, okay, Paul, we'll do a vegan. Right? Because I don't drink vegan, right? Like, but Paul can't do whey. So finally, after I don't know how many years, we did vegan. And we're sold out all the time.
Now.
Like, there's like a worldwide shortage of like the creamer we use, the vegan creamer. So literally it's running today across the street. So for all those people listening, and we've been getting so many emails, hey, when are you getting vegan back in stock? It's like, we're like a week or two away.
Vanilla too? Because I feel like vanilla is the one that sells out the fastest.
All of them should be running.
Awesome. Yeah,
I hate all vegan things, and I love the Core Vegan. I don't buy it because I like Pro better, but it is really good.
When Doug started sending me the samples of the vegan protein, I was like, bro, are you sending me whey? This doesn't taste like vegan because I'd been going to expos and I've had clients that were vegan, and I kept trying vegan proteins because, when you can't have protein powder as a bodybuilder, that is a huge annoyance in your day. Like, trying to consume enough protein with zero powders, especially in the improvement season when you're not that hungry. So getting a protein powder for me was huge, and I would just try it, and they would just be chalky and dry and terrible macros. And so when he started sending me these samples, I'm going, there's no way this is vegan. Like, it actually, I prefer it to the whey. Like, I prefer the texture and I prefer the taste. So, I don't know if that's just because now that's what I'm used to, but yeah, it's, I hear that quite commonly. The vegan protein is the best they've ever had. And actually it bakes really well. Like, it's good in cooking because of the texture that you guys have created.
Yeah, it's really thick and smooth and creamy. So, I mean, you're going to have a little bit of the grittiness just from the sources of the vegan proteins, but yeah, it's really minimized, and it is enjoyable. I mean, like, shoot, like, I had to approve all the flavors and the textures. So it took a little while before I was like, okay, I can drink this, because, the first rounds of vegan were pretty rough because most of the vegan on the market is pretty rough.
Yeah, and you told me that was because a lot of the companies don't use certain sweeteners, and then the macros.
So one of the things that we found is, like, I'm a big fan of sucralose. I really don't like stevia, and I'm also a fan of, like, the safety studies, right? And some people might not respond well to sucralose, but we use sucralose in our pre-workouts, in our milk-based proteins, and what we were finding is people that more people were vegan for the reason that they couldn't do, or they wanted a vegan protein because they couldn't do whey, or they had, like, ethical issues, right? Why they were vegan. They didn't have ethical issues against sucralose. They wanted it to taste great. So I think the mistake a lot of people make, and maybe I'm giving away the secret here, is a lot of vegan proteins think, oh, stevia is more natural, so that the vegans, right, like your more earthy, crunchy crowd, are not going to want it. But, like, honestly, most of the vegan consumers would rather have the great taste of sucralose over the bitterness of stevia, which would be on top of the bitterness of pea and brown rice protein, right? So it's just a recipe for disaster, and that's why so many of the pea proteins on the market are terrible. And we had to add the coconut oil creamer to really help with the texture and the thickness and the consistency, and that
that really helped as well.
I think a key takeaway with that, just everything you went over with vegan, is that like you guys at Core, like you take a lot of care and time going like from inception or conception of the idea to the final product. Like how long did it take from when you finally decided, okay, Paul, you're getting a vegan protein, to when it was released?
Quite a while. Quite a while. And I think the first round of samples that we tasted did have stevia. And then we just started like doing a little bit more market research and talking to people of like, why do you want vegan? And we found it wasn't like, they didn't want stevia. They wanted a vegan protein. They're totally different. It's like apples and oranges, right? So that was the first hurdle. And then it was just constant, I don't know, 6, 8, 10 different rounds of samples before we got to something that was palatable. And then we had to make it good after that, right? So, it's like a dozen rounds of sampling, and it's not an overnight thing, that's for sure. I mean, 6+ months for sure.
Yeah. I mean, any kind of true success, whether it's in coaching or supplements or bodybuilding, it's like, it's not going to be overnight ever. Like it has to take time. And I think that's probably a mistake that both coaches and supplement companies out there that may even be bigger than either of you make mistakes with. Like they just like, okay, we're going to have a vegan protein. We're just going to copy this formula that we found somewhere and just put it out there just to say we have it, instead of really being true to your values of like putting out quality and doing it for the people that you want to serve, not just making money from it.
Well, and I think Doug even, you can give me the details on this, Doug, because I know part of the reason they moved to where they moved is to shorten the timeline on that process, because they're literally in the parking lot with you guys now, right? Like you don't have to.
Yeah, they actually just walked in the door right out here. So like they're constantly, so whether or not they actually just moved into the facility here. So some of their R&D is not completely set up yet, but like we're getting samples every day, right? And we can have feedback, and we're constantly working, because we have 3 brands that we run out of here. It's a constant R&D process. So part of the reason why we are a strategic partner with Dynamic, that is literally right out the door there, is so that we can shorten that. I mean, that cuts down on the shipping lead times from finished product. I mean, we literally will drive our box truck next door, load it up, and bring it back over here. So we don't have to pay for shipping as well, which also really helps, especially when the world is as crazy as it is today. Those shipping costs are nuts. So it was definitely a business decision to buy this property with Dynamic.
Yeah, it's exciting for me because that's kind of the same, Misty and I and Pro Physique, we go through the same thing with, gym location and, how do we continue to grow the brand while sticking to our same kind of core values. And it's just always a process. So it's funny whenever you need to get a little inspired, go hang out with Doug for a couple of days, man. Like the guy's just constantly pushing, never in a rush, but always evolving. That's kind of like the thing I like. And
I like to take the ALAT approach as opposed to the ASAP approach, which is as long as it takes versus as soon as possible.
Yeah.
It just it instills a mindset of grit that if you're going to be like, man, we're going to do this and we're going to get it right as long as it takes, as opposed to I'm going to bring out a vegan protein as soon as possible. Then we would have a shitty vegan protein, right? It's just, and so like that's the approach we take. And, maybe that slows down the timeline of certain things and even financial growth in some respects, but I think it's the right way to do things. I appreciate the kind words, but and I think this is something that happens to a lot of entrepreneurs. Like we've been very successful, but I still have this, I think, a healthy level of paranoia and fear of failure that keeps me driving. And that the idea of like, we really have so much more to do, right? Like there's so much more to do and we're just scratching the surface. I know that sounds a little cliched, but that's something that is in my mind literally every day. I have to kind of remind myself that, there's so much more to do and there's so little time and you want to do the ASAP approach, but that's not going to win in the long term. You have to have the ALAT mindset.
Yeah, I think, I can definitely agree with you on the paranoia thing. I say it all the time to either Misty or Steven, but we can literally have the most successful month in our company's history, which we've been doing consecutively month after month. And I also feel like we're about to just go out of business at the same time. Like, it's just the weirdest. It doesn't make sense, like it could be a
Yeah.
quiet day or something weird will happen and it will just send me down this path of thinking like, oh my gosh, this is the beginning of the end. And then literally the next day I'm like, what am I talking about? We're the greatest company that ever lived. Like, it's this constant back and forth. But like you said, the healthy part of that paranoia is that it keeps me sharp. Like, I'm always staying on top of, being aware of what's going on, making sure I, stay a good coach, Rachel, like doing the things that I need to do. Because you've got to keep doing the things that made you successful. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
know.
can't forget that stuff that got you started doing what
I
you're
totally
doing.
agree with that. I'm a numbers guy, and I don't look at numbers for like, hey, it's what Lambo could I buy next, or right, like, or anything like. It's not even about the money, but I love looking at the numbers, and it does blow my mind. They're like, oh, we did this that month. How in the world are we going to do that again next month? And then you do it again the next month or more, and you're just like, well, how in the world is that going to happen, right? And we have, we have a big opportunity coming up with Core rolling out into all 700 vitamin shops across the country coming in January, which is a massive opportunity for us. But it's just like, well, what does that look like, right? Like, how do you scale that? How do you finance that? How do you, all of these other things? Oh, this is going to be a disaster, right? And then, it's just like the roller coaster ride of owning a business is just, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, and you still managing, that's just one of your brands. I mean, you got Merica Energy, you've got Arms Race, you've got Merica Labz. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, the other thing I always notice about Doug is he's, how do I put this respectfully? Frugal. Doug's, when Doug opens a new office, he doesn't just go down to the store and, drop his credit card down and just give me all the furniture. No, you go to like, you find deals and, you make sure that your dollar is,
Hey, bro, I know exactly what you're saying. It's this core value coin that's in my table right here. It's called Collect the Gold Dust. That is core value number, I think, 10 for us. And it doesn't mean be cheap, right?
Right.
But it means that no matter how successful you become, right? Like, if you cannot be frivolous with your money and do dumb things like, I don't know. I use
Buy
the
a
Lambo.
Lambo.
Excuse, but like, right. But
Fly
hey,
private. We'll say fly private.
Yeah, right. Like, like, that's just like, I don't know, no matter how successful or no matter how much money I'd have, like, for me, I guess flying private to me, like $20,000 to fly a 2-hour flight down this, down the coast, like, that would blow my mind. I don't care if I'm worth $100 million. Like, I wouldn't want to do that. Like, that's just because I've come from not having that money and then to be frivolous with it like that. So, that's $20,000 that I could have given to an employee for a surprise bonus, which I would have appreciated more the response that employee would have given me than that, leather couch in the plane, right? So collect the gold dust is if you do all those little smart things with your money and you collect all those tiny pieces of gold dust, eventually you'll have a big ingot of gold, right? And so that was Paul trying to say, yeah, Doug is really cheap. No, but it's not that.
No, I've always appreciated that. I mean, honestly, because I'm the exact same way. I hate, I mean, to my wife's dismay, I hate spending money. Like, it's this weird thing. Like, when I was young and had no money, lived paycheck to paycheck, I was throwing money around. And now that you accumulate some wealth, I don't want to spend it. It's this dichotomy. But, one of the first surprises, when I went up to stay with Doug and I got in his car and I sat down in his car and I looked around, I was like, hold up, Doug's got a really nice fucking car. How did I not know about this? And Doug's like, well, because I don't talk about like that stuff. Like, that's just not my personality. And I'm thinking, there are.
It's not a Lambo.
It's not a Lambo.
And I actually sold the car that I think you're referring to. Now I just
now you have the truck, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's the same time. It was like, that's kind of our personalities are similar on that way. I don't like to flash. Meanwhile, there are some people, and not that's for their personalities, but they're they get two nickels and they're showing off their Ferraris and Lamborghinis and and it's like, I don't know. That's just not.
Hey, and there's nothing wrong with like, and
Oh,
just
no.
to be clear here, like you and I both love really nice things.
I
right?
like looking at it. Yeah.
Yeah, and so there's nothing wrong with that. And at the end of the day, like we're working hard for a reason, like, right? Like I want nice things for my family, right? And, like a nice house and, that I don't want them to want really for anything. I don't want to spoil them, but like we work hard for a reason. So there's nothing to be ashamed of like liking fast cars. Like if that's your thing, that's your thing. But like, I also do keep it in mind to try to be respectful for, all the people that also, you got to remember, you got to take care of your people too. Right. So like, if, how does that look? It can be inspiring to some people. And I think I like to attract people where if they see the success that I have, it's inspiring to them, as opposed to sometimes you can create a culture of like, look at that mofo driving around in a Lambo.
So lucky.
Yeah, he's so lucky. Like they don't get it. We just had a recent experience where I had a bunch of employees over my house, and I was a little hesitant. It's a new house that we built, and it's a pretty nice house. And General Manager Carl came up to me afterwards. He's like, Doug, I think you'll be happy to know that like people saw the house and they weren't like, look at this mofo with this house. Like, man, he's really lucky. They were inspired to say like, man, he's 42 years old and this is his house, right? And, I can do that too. And so like, I think it's important that you surround yourself with people and employees as an entrepreneur that have that drive and can see that, right? Like if you have a culture that's a little bit seedy or like just, like not the right culture, those people are going to be like haters, right? So, that's really important for us to getting those right people on the bus with that right mindset.
The problem Doug would have is employees might get upset because he spends too much money on leg training equipment. Like he's got like 30 pieces of leg.
But he lets them all train with it, so like it's right there.
It's a requirement.
They all have free gym memberships, right? Like so, whenever I say I bought a new piece of leg equipment, they're like, yeah.
I mean, honestly, you know what lets me know I've made it in this life is that I get free supplements and I get free food because I work with Icon. So it's like, I mean, if you'd have told me that 20 years ago, you're going to get free food and supplements, I'd have said, hey, sign me up for that life.
I'll take it. Yeah.
So going back to the, what you had just said, Doug, about the people and the culture, what do you feel like are I know you have very well-established core values. You have 12, right? That's the number. For Core, and just all the brands. And Paul, I know we have great values at Pro Physique. What do you guys think are the main values or just behaviors, whatever you want to call it, that you guys instill and live out every day in order to have that culture with your employees?
So I think a lot of the core values, and when we did our boss status of our origin story, it was kind of cool because as we were telling our story, we smoked a big cigar and it was about an hour and a half long. And during that time, we ran through like the story and the core values were coming out in the story. Like there's an example of taking risks. There's an example of figuring it out. There's an example of collecting the gold dust or whatever. And so our core values were truly core values that we have lived out, we meaning the collection of people here that have helped build the brands over the past 10, 15 years, right? So for core values, the key is that there is no right or wrong core values. You can even have core values that aren't very like virtuous core values, if that makes sense. But that is your core value to your company, right? Like as we were narrowing these down, one of them that kept on coming up is like charity, right? Like giving back. And I looked at what our work was and like we were never in a position to like really have charity and be giving back and giving away all of this for charity. We did it another way. We did it in serving our clients and serving our community, right? So for just like charitable, like that wasn't our core value. That's a great value to have. And maybe one day that will be one of our core values, but ours were more be a servant or build community, right? Those were things that we were already doing. So I think it's really important for all companies, and I highly suggest that you guys do this, too. And it sounds like you do have a great, and well, I know you have a great set of core values. Otherwise, I wouldn't work with you. But like actually sit down with the leaders in your company and write them out. And I know it sounds super cheesy. It sounds like super, I want to say Gary V-ish, or it's really a Jim Collins.
I love Gary V, so you can't go wrong.
Pretty sure
there.
core values existed before Gary V. I'm not sure, but
you know what I mean, right?
Yeah,
like,
I know what you mean.
It's not even a core value. It's not even a Gary V thing. It's a Jim Collins thing. Who is an author.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a part of my MBA program. We talked about, when you set up a company, have a set of guiding principles.
But how many people actually do it? I mean, it took us 15 years to do it, to literally write them down, and now we have challenge coins with them. And I'll tell you what, we have become such a better company now that when we can actually make decisions with a set of guidelines, right? It's like how you live your life. As a Christian, we live by the 10 Commandments, right? Like, or some values of like whatever that is. Or if you're another religion, it's like you live by these life principles, right? It's like, what are the principles and the core values of your company that you live by? And that really helps guide and helps your business make decisions when there's difficult decisions to be made. We'll literally sit at the table where we work as a group, and we'll be struggling with like what to do, whether to launch a new product, start a new brand, sign a new influencer. And it always comes down to somebody saying, well, does that align with our core values, right? Like, will doing this align with our core values? And it makes it very black and white. So like, if you guys haven't like literally written them down, it sounds super easy, but it's actually quite difficult, and memorialize those, I think you guys will find it's an amazing experience to do it.
We're about to have our first ever completely corporate, retreat in October. And so that probably, we're going to start establishing some traditions at that. So that's definitely something that we could look at.
Like literally throw them on a whiteboard, have everyone shout out, like, tell me what you guys think our core values are. Put them all, write the 30 core values out that are out there, and literally talk through them. And you'll come up with a list of 5 to 15 core values that will really help guide your company going forward. And I think your employees will really appreciate that too. It'll give them more clarity, right? It's very easy then for them to look at those.
Yeah, I mean,
it helps you to make decisions on bringing new people on, right?
Totally.
Well, and I think the big thing I've wanted to focus on, actually, I was with you when I heard this. We were in Australia, and we were traveling around with Joe Menzel of Massive Joe's.
I think I know what you're going to say.
And he kept saying to me, content is king, but
community
is kingdom. And I kept thinking, damn, every company that grows, it's a community. It's a culture that kind of like people get swept up in. And that's the one thing that I've really focused on with our Transformation Challenge events and our, training and, posing events and our Pro Physique Experience events is like, and even just, Rachel, like, coming out to Dallas and hanging out with you and Daraja and, the local girls there that we got to hang out with, like that, Liz came out to dinner with us. That helps us establish a culture. Like that's who we are, and, traveling to different cities everywhere. We're kind of a, multi-city, multinational. I mean, we got Canadian and South African, coaches now. So, that culture is something that I've always been. So yeah, there's already these established things, like you said, Doug. We probably just haven't like memorialized them, like you put it, like put them on a coin or whatever it is you do.
Well, a lot of those things, like, one thing that comes to mind for me for Pro Physique is people first. That's something that you, Steven, like it's said a lot at events when we're just talking on podcasts, just content in general. And it's how we all coach. It's how all the Pro Physique coaches decide why they want to be a coach for Pro Physique. It's because they care about people and they care about health. We do. Whereas, like, unfortunately, that's not always the case with other coaching teams and other coaches. And we all appreciate that because it's something that a lot of us have experienced the opposite prior to working with you as a coach or Steven or whoever. So it's like those values just kind of naturally have come up as well. Like that's the main one for me that has kept me a big fan ever since learning about
and I think that's I mean, like, from the beginning, that was something that I learned early on. Lane always instilled in me as a coach, always do the right thing, because you only get one name in this industry, in this sport, in your career, and once it's ruined, it's almost impossible to come back. So even if it's painful, even if it means you lose money, even if it means you lose a client or lose a opportunity, do the right thing. Don't do the wrong thing, and take a shortcut. And so, yeah, I've definitely made some decisions across the years that I was like, really don't want to do this, but it's the right thing. And it's crazy how that works. Literally, like within a day or two, something amazing will happen. And I'm just like, look, like karma is a real mother. Like, it's crazy how often I'll literally just do something and be like, oh, I didn't want to do that. And then, yeah, literally, like, you can just see the universe resolve itself. It's crazy.
So kind of going off of that, what has been, and you don't have to get super specific, either of you, but what have been some of the biggest obstacles for both of you as business owners that have kind of might have almost prevented you from continuing, working towards those core values or living out those core values, or obstacles that have been difficult as far as like how you run your culture and how that culture stays intact over the years?
I'll let Doug go because I got some specific ones.
Yeah, I mean, so how do you establish the core values and like instill the culture is that you need to make sure as a leader that you're living those core values out, right? Like that's first and foremost. So like you can't just make up core value and say that's great and then don't do it. So like actions definitely speak louder than words, and hopefully you attract the right people. The problem is sometimes you get people on the bus that are the wrong people. And so, for me, it's like I feel like we are in a great spot. It's taken us 15 years to get the right people on the bus, right? And there are certain people on this team that are willing to move across the country with me and uproot their lives and do all of that. And they're, in the retail stores, we have 12 stores. That's a lot of people working for us, right? Including that's 12 managers, it's general managers, it's regional managers, it's like assistant general manager. It's a lot of people. And it takes a long time. So like those are definitely the obstacles, is finding the right people with the right mindset. And, it's hard because, in a world of ASAP thinking, right, the people want it immediately, and there's nothing that comes immediately, right? Like anybody who's been with me a long time understands our core value of earn it. Like you're not going to come on board. I mean, Rachel, we've talked about this. You're not going to come on board right away and be handed a silver platter. You're going to earn it. You're going to earn the respect of everybody. And you're only going to, earn it is if you put in the work and there is a return on it, right? And so like finding the right people with that mindset in today's culture is a difficult thing. So that is always an obstacle for us, is finding the right people with that mindset. And so we've been fortunate enough to run into many, many people like that. And I think we do have a great culture and a great fit of people here now, but it wasn't without going through some bad apples and people that just didn't quite see it the same way. And there will always be that case, especially in retail, right? Because retail is a high turnover industry. But even now we've become much better. Like I can sit in a room with Carl, our general manager, and we can literally say, I know the next manager to quit or to move on to another job. Like we know it's coming because we see it. And so that gives us a much better insight into like when we're hiring people, like to be better hirers, if that makes sense. Yeah. And so that's always going to be an obstacle, is finding the right people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, that's like I told you the story with Steven. I'll go a little deeper into that because my first big hurdle was when I started getting to a point where I was coaching at a pretty high level, but as we know, a coach has a limited ability to coach people, right? Like there are some coaches out there that will take on every single client and just start sending what's a cookie cutter plan. And that was, and still is, a big practice in this sport. And obviously that was one of our core values. Like we're going to actually treat everybody like an individual. And so with that came a point where I was actually not taking on clients, but still getting multiple client requests per day, sometimes as many as 50 per week. And literally I was so overwhelmed at one point, I just stopped looking at the inquiries. I just didn't reply. And then people would get mad at me. I sent you a request, I never heard back. And I'm like, well, sorry, I'm full and I'm just a one person thing. And that's when Steven stepped in. I said, Steven, I had hundreds at that point, hundreds of inquiries sitting in an inbox. And I said, would you want to go through them and just tell me if there's anybody in there that you think would be a good fit for me to coach? And he said, sure. And so he went through all of them. And then he's like, what do you want me to do with the rest of these inquiries? And I said, well, how about you reach out to them? Do you want to coach? And he was coaching on his own at the time. And that's when we decided, he would come on as a coach. And even just that one little thing was not easy because people were wanting to work with me. Why are they going to work with Steven? And figuring out how to overcome that hurdle took a little time too. So, but that was the first
Don't you
step.
still get that today? People see Pro Physique and
For
they
sure.
think they're going to work with Paul.
Not nearly as bad as before. Now I literally will be on the phone with someone and I'll be like, yeah, so let's talk about your goals. Okay, we're going to do this show. Cool. Okay, how do I pay you? Okay, here's how we just get started. Okay, now am I working with you? I'm like, I'm on the phone with you, dude. Like that'd be pretty weird if you weren't working with me. So I think now that people see we have a full team of coaches, and a lot of it is, bringing awareness to our other coaches, because not everybody has the desire or the ability to just put out content and, help people. But that's some of the things that we help, our coaches do is go, you've got to have a blueprint where people can go look you up and go, oh, this person does know what they do. So not everybody has a master's degree in exercise science. Not everybody has somebody on the Olympia stage, but everybody that works for us as a coach has something that drives business towards them. And, we help establish that. So it's just like you said, we've been doing this for so long now. I can look over my entire client roster and, I'm sure Rachel can think of a few clients that she has that would be like a natural fit for a coach. It's just a sense you get from doing this. So that's been the hardest thing, because people reach out to us to become coaches. That's generally not how we find coaches. It's more filling a need.
It's funny because that's how we hire here most of the time, and that's how we find higher positions. It's like they'll start as an ambassador, or they'll start as a customer in our store, right? Like, and and whenever there's like an open, like a senior level position opening, it's always like, I'd much rather have somebody step into that role that is already understands our culture, right? And I mean, I really don't care where you went to school. Like, it was funny because when I was going to school and college and all that stuff, when I worked in the corporate world was such a big deal, right? Like Ivy League this, Ivy League that, MBA this, MBA that. I could care less. It's like, I'm looking at like, do you have one of our core values of the ability to figure things out? People either have it or they don't. And if you have that ability, I'll take you any day, right? Like, I mean, obviously there's other things I look for, but the ability to figure something out is so important. And that I would much rather promote from within than go external.
Yeah, I've had a lot of, Steven and I have had a lot of chats about, because now that we've had so many coaches come and we've had a few leave, we're starting to notice trends of the ones that tend to do really good in this line of work. And one of them is they've worked in the service industry at some point. They've either been a bartender, a server, they've worked in retail. At some point, they were involved in customer interactions where, that was their job. And it just gives you a level of respect for what we do versus the people that came right out of college with a really good degree and then start coaching, and it just wasn't a good fit because they didn't actually understand people. They talked over people. They felt superior to people.
Good at interpersonal communication.
100%. And so those, I always jokingly tell people now, like, if you've been a bartender or a server, you probably can be a good coach because you've got to have that ability to interact with people.
It's the same way with the way we look at our managers that come into our retail stores, right? Like, I could take somebody and I could just tell from their personality and their willingness to want to talk to somebody, learn about somebody, and genuinely care. If they know nothing about supplements, I can teach you about supplements. But that first part is much harder to teach.
Same with us.
So we will know right off the rip whether or not somebody, like, you could be like a total nerd out geek, super supplement guru, but if you don't have that mayor personality, like we tell our managers, you're not managers, you're mayors, and you're mayors of your city. And if you're not a mayor, the store won't do well. And now it's much easier for us to spot that.
Yeah. So, hurdles are evolved too. So like the hurdle we had early on with, just me by myself. Now the hurdles are, okay, how do we know when it's time to add another director of coaching? How do we know, if it's time to open up a new facility? Like these are different hurdles. The biggest one now is the app stuff. We really want to get on the cutting edge of technology, and it's like we've struggled with companies over promising, under delivering, and so we're still kind of looking for that thing. And my wife actually went out here in Tampa and joined it's like a group of entrepreneurs that meet up every week, and slowly but surely she's kind of started to connect with a couple people that have been like, hey, you need to look at this person that developed this app. And so now we're starting to like see some fruit come from that, but it all comes down to looking, like you said, figuring it out, like understanding that like it's not going to fix itself. Despite the 12 emails I get every day of somebody promising to come in and help me grow my business, that's not the people that are going to do anything for
Bro,
me.
the amount of marketing people that message me like, hey, I can get you 100x return on your Facebook ads. Like, give me $10,000 and I'll have you 100,000 tomorrow. Like, it's crazy. I was like, how'd you even get my email?
I think they literally just type and type until they get one right. But yeah, those, that's I guess that's the kind of thing too. If you weren't there at the beginning of your business to grow it, I honestly wouldn't want that. If someone could come in and say, hey, if you give me $10,000, I can get you 10 million. I'd be like, you know what? I'd rather learn how to get the 10 million. I enjoy that part of the business. Like I enjoy that, like you said, slow, steady growth. I enjoy adding a new subscriber, getting an extra like. Like you said, the specific numbers don't matter to me. Whether I make $1,000 a month or $100,000 a month, that doesn't matter. It matters what I made last month and this month. I like to see progress on some platform, some scale. So I get a bit obsessive with just kind of just doing a little better all the time. So that 10x, when that stuff came out, I was like, 10x, just 1.1x would be awesome. Why do you need a 10x? Why do you gotta retire next year and sit on a beach?
I'd be bored.
Yeah.
I say that all the time.
I think both of you would be.
what's retiring like?
Well, speaking of retiring, we'll probably wrap this up a little soon.
Nice transition.
Hey.
Nice transition. You're like a pro at this.
I do run the podcast probably for a reason. Maybe. I don't know. So last question. What is coming next? What is any updates that either of you can share? Doug, obviously, like we have things coming with Core in the next year. Lots of fun, exciting things. But Paul, you can also, I know we have many things coming this year too. So excite the listeners.
So one of the big things that we're getting into a new category, and it's been a kind of a long process for us on the Core side, and that is we're getting into the hydration category, which doesn't seem like that big of a deal, but we've taken it a step further. So we did really cool stick packs that come in individual boxes that have individual stick packs. And it's not just a hydration product. It actually has legit doses of electrolytes, sodium, potassium, magnesium, et cetera, et cetera. But in addition to that, really nice performance enhancers. We did it at a very affordable price. It literally, and it tastes amazing. It tastes like, it's gonna be like a Gatorade without the sugar. We're launching in 4 flavors. That's launching September 19th. Really excited about that product. It's gonna be, I think it's going to do really well. I think it's going to be a really good mainstream product too. I think there's a big gap for really good performance hydration stuff. So that is like our big launch that it's literally been in the works for 6+ months. So it's been quite a while. It's a long manufacturing process with the stick packs and everything. So that's a big launch that we have coming. You guys know we drop new products all the time, but that one I'm pretty excited about. The big news really, and I mentioned it earlier, is January 1, we're rolling out into all vitamin shops. We're rolling out 2 flavors of Core Pro, 2 flavors of Core Pudding, 2 flavors of Core Pump, and 3 flavors of the all-new Fury. So we have an upgraded version of Fury, and that will be launching exclusively at Vitamin Shop for the drop. So I'd appreciate any love you guys can get if you can stop by your local vitamin shop and just say, hey, I know that brand. That brand's awesome. If you guys can buy a product, that's great too, because, it's one hurdle to get into these locations. And, we've actually turned down offers from the likes of like GNC to roll Core into there because I just didn't think it was right. I didn't think it was right for us at the time. We weren't ready to go there. And now we're finally in a position where we're ready to go into Vitamin Shop. And, but that's just the first part of it, right? Then it's the team's on the road, they're visiting Vitamin Shop managers, they're preaching about the product, we're doing more education, you are driving traffic to the stores. It's just a lot going on. So any support you guys can give us there, we totally appreciate it. And we're excited for that. It's a whole new chapter for us.
Well, I'm glad to hear that vegan's not going into the stores, because that way I can.
Not yet. Not yet.
Better promote that code Paul R.
Yeah.
Hey, my name's on the bottle, or my initials anyway. So
I'm sure if we get vegan into Vitamin Shop, we'll work you off something there.
I gotta. I get excited because my friends, they get excited to see my name on the bottle. They think I made it.
Pretty cool.
I'm like,
you did make it.
Well, you need to come into HQ so that we can do like a live, and then when somebody orders vegan, you can, and it's like a client or something, you can sign it and write them a little note on their tub.
Yeah, I've been slacking so hard on coming up there, but this is, so when we talk about like what's coming, it's just been, the most challenging year of my career, because we moved into a new house. I'm actually sitting in my new office. As you can see, that's my brand new desk behind us, and there's nothing there. I'm still sitting at this grungy little desk. I've been in here for 2 months. I literally have been traveling every weekend. The boys are 8 and 4 now. Our little girl just turned 2. We are, I literally, every second of my day is accounted for. So coming up there has just been tough. But the big thing that we're doing this year for the company is so historically we've always done some type of event where a lot of the coaches would come, and we would bring in, a few guest speakers like Brett Contreras and Dr. Joe. And we would make it like an event, where people could come and pay to spend the weekend and train with us and learn. Well, this is our first ever fully company exclusive retreat. And this is something that, I've been wanting to do for a while, where I really think it's going to be important to build our company culture to that next level, because we're all scattered, right? I'm one of the few people that gets to see everybody. I get to go to Oklahoma to see Danny. I get to go to Texas to see Rachel. I'm going to see Kaylee and Steven this weekend in Pittsburgh at a show. But they don't all have that opportunity to interact. And I think that's initially what made Pro Physique grow was, if you weren't a client of mine, you were coached by a client of mine, or you were friend, it's been such an internal natural growth that I want to really encourage that. So we're going to have our first event, focus it a lot on, just the social and stuff, but we're going to have some fun things happening. I don't want to give anything away for those that are listening. And then next year I want to do in February, we're going to announce the date of our female contest prep seminar. So everyone knows I focus on bikini at this point, but Rachel is a figure pro, and so I want to make sure there's some figure competitors there. Wellness is also a burgeoning division. So I just want to make it female specific. We're going to have some special guest speakers, maybe some special judges, but that event that's happening in February will be something that I want to do annually. And that'll probably be a week or two before the Arnold. So are you guys doing your Arnold thing this year, Doug?
We did. Literally yesterday, I got the email. Carl's in charge of getting that all squared up. And so we will be having our mega booth with a 20 by 30 and then a 20 by 20 for arms race. So we'll be back this year.
Yeah, that's exciting.
So we're excited. But dude, let's get something on the books. We have a really good facility here. We got an amazing world-class gym. Let's get something on the books for you to do something here in our conference room. We can even simulcast it wherever. Let's get something on the books here to do a seminar here. We can bring in the other core athletes that are part of Pro Physique, Rachel and Daraja, and do something here.
I'd be so down with that. And then, of course, our next big thing is the Transformation Challenge that starts in January. So we're gearing up for that. And it's really been nice as we've completely changed the way that's run. It's all done digitally now. We have, was a lot of emailing before, but now we have a platform that allows us to, again, overcome a hurdle that we had before. So it's we've done the first one ever in the fall, and it's really taught us a lot. So the January one will be huge. And that's something that I do want to someday have an event just for that. Maybe that's something we could talk about, Doug, but a post Transformation Challenge event, maybe fly in the winners, make it a party, because, we do promote core strongly within that Transformation Challenge.
Let's do it. I'm all for it.
Okay. So
Cool.
So you know, I did literally 10 seconds ago, I was checking my phone. I got a text saying vanilla, chocolate, and maple finished today, and berry and peanut butter are finishing tomorrow on the vegan side. So there you go. Hot off the presses. So
how many
we will
are you
have
doing?
a back in stock email.
How many are you doing? Because I literally I'm putting the cinnamon roll in my shake, which ruins it because it's strawberry, blueberry, banana. Not a vanilla.
Those 5 are back as of tomorrow. So Sam's messaging me now. We're gonna get the back in stock email ready to go, and
Love it.
there you go.
When's our next quarterly stipend? I'm low.
Hey, any
Paul
day.
needs
Well,
a
you
special
just
delivery.
you just message me and we'll take care of you. I'm sure we can get you some right off the presses.
Well, and I am looking at bringing a full-time videographer on because I do want to compete next year. I do want to document it and stuff, and that's some of the stuff that I've had to let go. Like as crazy as YouTube has been this year, I've added 100,000 subscribers in 6 months. I've literally made the least amount of videos I've ever made. It's like I said, when you're talking about core values, my core value at this point is coach. Like a coach comes first, not above dad and husband, but with this stuff at my desk, the coach stuff comes first. I'd feel like an idiot if I was putting out YouTube videos every day and my clients were like, "Hey, remember me?" So,
well, the nice thing is you have such a library of, like, I know when you were on the rip of doing like a video every day. Like I remember when we went to Australia, you filmed like 10 in a day so that you could have something every day. So you have that library, and now people are watching the old videos. So like
they are, and that does help. But I also love putting out content. So that's a constant struggle, is like figuring out that balance of, it's one of those things. Like I feel like it's a privilege for whatever reason. I gain followers, and I see so many people that work very hard on YouTube and they don't they work way harder than me for very little return. So it's like whatever that thing is that I have that people are watching, I just want to keep doing it because I feel like it's,
what it is, Paul? It's that sexy salt and pepper you got going on.
I
think so.
Whatever. I do think next time I compete, I'm going to grow the beard out nice and white because I look about 20 years older.
Love
so
it.
The beard.
Just makes you look crazy. So, yeah. So, and Coach Steven's competing in a couple weeks, and he's looking crazy. I had to go teach him how to take pictures yesterday. I'm like, dude, you're embarrassing me with these pictures you're posting. So I went and took pictures of him yesterday. Go look on my page today. You'll see a picture I took. Like.
Part-time photographer.
Yeah.
I do have the arty brain, like the brain that's like, I'm very particular with how lighting and angles and all that stuff looks. So it's also one of the hurdles of trying to be perfect all the time, and sometimes just going, this is good enough.
Yep.
Yeah. So.
Well, cool. Well, thank you so much, both of you, for giving your time. I know you both are very busy, but I think this is a good episode. People really enjoy for multiple reasons. If you're a follower of Core or Pro Physique or both, or me, I guess, I think you'll enjoy the episode. So thank you all for listening, and we will see you on the next one.
Later, guys.